are listening to LOA Recon with the Good Vibe coach Jeanette Ma, where we dissect the ins and outs and the art and science of conscious creation, all intended to amp up your manifesting game. Let's have some fun together. So let's pretend that where you work, it's your job to hire all the new employees. Like you're the one who goes through the applications, you set up the interviews, and you make all the hiring decisions. Okay, if that were your job and you were interested in doing it well, right, and setting everyone up for success, you'd probably be picking out all the best candidates, wouldn't you? Like you'd pick the ones who are the smartest and the friendliest, the most competent, the ones who are the most fun to work with, the ones who seemed like they were committed to doing a good job. That's who you'd choose, right? Right. Well, it turns out you've got a much bigger job than that in real life because you are hiring every person in your entire life. You are choosing who's going to be part of your world and how they're going to perform at that. You're picking whether you have nice neighbors or nightmare neighbors. You're choosing whether you have good dates or bad lovers. You're the one deciding whether your bosses are fair and fun or whether they're impossible. Right? And everyone always says you can't pick your family, but guess what, you guys? We are. All right. And another way to think about this is maybe how we're casting. Pretend you're the casting director for your life. Are you casting happy, loving family members, or are yours kind of annoying, maybe even dysfunctional? It might seem like it's not fair for us to take credit for them, but the truth is, we are making all the choices about who gets what role and how they are doing in that role. I've been thinking about this because just today, I caught myself making a really bad casting call. I had a cat who needed to go to the vet, and the vet that had an appointment available, I booked it even though he isn't my go-to vet, not my most favorite guy. I mean, the guy's super competent. He always gets it right. He makes good diagnoses and his treatments, they always work, okay? Really good. But I also make him out to be a little, like he has a terrible bedside manner and he's kind of unsympathetic, almost like he enjoys giving me bad news. I know that can't possibly be true, but it sure seems like it. I don't know if he doesn't like me personally or if he just likes racking up big bills. I don't know what it is. But here I am, bringing my cat to a guy that I cast in this way. What am I thinking, right? Oy. And you should hear the things I made up about my mortgage finance team. Yes, I did make them the best deal in town, that I get the very best rates here and the fees are the lowest with these guys. But I also made them out to be like, you got to keep an eye on them. Things will fall through the cracks because they don't pay all that much attention. So you have to, like, I'm not very important to them. You guys, it kind of makes me think I should be fired as the casting director of my own life because I bet every single one of you would do a better job hiring vets and mortgage finance people than I did for my own self. Why would I do that? Why would anyone do that? Because I know I'm not alone in this. I think it's because we don't realize that we are. We think that's just how people are. We don't realize that we're creating them that way. I love that phrase, that how we're creating them to be. I learned that the first time at a Landmark forum. I wasn't new to law of attraction. I actually considered myself law of attraction savvy and a conscious creator. But the instructor at this forum was talking about, it was an interesting example. Okay, anyone who's been through Landmark, they know this routine where they make those of us who are graduating call everyone in our life to our graduation, and then they make those people sit through a pitch, right, to try and get them to sign up too. Okay, so the instructor had told us all to go do that, and he was asking people, who's got people coming or whatever, and this one sweetest kid ever, he reports back that he did invite his girlfriend, but she said no, so she's not coming. And the instructor's asking why, and the guy explains, well, she's got a job and she can't just take off work and yada this, yada that. And the instructor is basically asking him, so you expected her to say no? And he says, well, yeah, I mean, I know her and I know she's not just going to take time off to do this. The instructor let him have it. He was like, why would you create her to be the girl who says no? I want you to take your phone, get back out there, call her again. He made him go out in the hall and call her again, except this time he said, call the girl who says yes. Okay, so the guy comes back in the room a couple minutes later. He's got tears in his eyes because here he is making the same request to the same girl, except it wasn't the same girl because he called the girl that he let say yes instead of expected a no from, and she totally said yes. It was a pretty powerful example of how we create people to be. Oh. So I think this is worth paying attention to. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm not good at this. I get a lot of casting work right. I manifest fabulous neighbors. In fact, I'm currently casting very helpful contractors for work that I'm getting ready to hire. And I have ridiculously helpful friends and family. And I've always been, actually, I shouldn't say always been. I've been really good about casting perfect clients. And that is such a game changer for how a girl experiences her business. If you're not already familiar with how to cast perfect clients, I have got a home study course for you. Go to perfectclientcreator.com because this will make all the difference in how you experience your business. But I wasn't always that good at it. I remember in the very beginning, I was working with a mentor coach, Gina Gabellini, as I was growing my business. And one day I asked her a question. I said, Gina, what do you do when your client isn't ready to hear that they create their entire world? And there was this long pause. And then when Gina responded, she sounded kind of perplexed. She asked me, why would you create them that way? Why would you create them that way? As soon as she asked that, I got it. I got it because here I am creating clients who aren't ready to hear it. Why would I? It was a really good question. It's all I needed to hear to change my mind about it. So I think it's worth paying attention to this. There are things I definitely have room for improvement on. Another one on my list that deserves some upgrades is, my romantic interests, the men that I cast in my love life. I have done a lot of things right with that in the past, but that role deserves to be upgraded for sure. That's a job for another day, but I'd love for you to think about who you're casting in your life. Right? The people that you deal with day in and day out, the ones that you're driving with in traffic. Are you casting friendly, generous, patient people? Or maybe not so much? And the people you work with, the family that you have. Again, I know sometimes it doesn't feel very good to take credit for them, but for anyone who thinks that's just how they are, I'm telling you, if you change your mind about them, if you learn to see them in a different light, have a different expectation, they will change who they are for you. It is super freaky how that works. You guys remember my crackhead neighbor story, right? If you haven't listened to that podcast episode, I think it's got crackhead neighbor in the title. It should be easy to find. But that one was pretty amazing. This is before I understood how well people respond to what we expect. My experience of him was he was just... oh boy, he was a nightmare. He was from hell. But I knew that if I could just be love and light, right? If I could be that vibration, then he'd have to be gone from my world because, like attracts like. So if I'm love and light and he's not, he'd have to be gone. But no, it turns out when I finally plugged into love and light and other good things, that guy, he became love and light for me. Not for everyone else in the neighborhood, but he did for me. It blew my mind. So I'm just saying that hypothetical question that I started this with about asking you to pretend you're a hiring manager or a casting director, you guys, it's not hypothetical. You might want to take that job more seriously if you're like me and you've got room for improvement in the roles, some of the roles that you're casting in your life. Hope you got some inspiration from this. Thanks for listening and happy manifesting.